host. So today we have Erron from Ricoh, and we're going to be talking about Microsoft 365 Cloud Security Essentials for your business. So security is not always the most fun topic. Some people actually, and so we see a lot of small businesses that don't actually take care of security for their business because they think that they don't need it. But guess what? We do need it. And we're seeing a lot of spamming happening right now, a lot of targeted spamming. So we need to be careful about the way that we run our business and making sure we've got our security all set up, not just in our personal lives, but also in our business. So we are streaming live on a number of platforms. And depending on what platform you're on, you can communicate with us by using the chat features or the Q&A features or the comment sections. Feel free to drop your questions in there because Erron's going to answer those throughout the session or at the end of the session, whichever is his preference. And we want to make these sessions bespoke to your business. We want to make it useful for your business. So ask your questions to the experts. That's why they're here. Just a little reminder, don't forget the competition is running. And if you want a chance to boost your office, it's called Boost My Office. You can find information about it on the website. And you might be seeing some information coming through on your Facebook feed or on some of the social channels as well. But basically what you can win is a Mac Pro, a desk, a screen, and a package with Zero. And the full package is about $4,000 worth of value. So don't miss out. You can enter right on the main dashboard of the Digital Boost once you sign in. So thanks, Erron, for joining us today. I'm really looking forward to learning a little bit more about this. We have talked about cybersecurity before, but we haven't specifically delved into Microsoft 365. So this is a new topic for us here at Digital Boost. So we appreciate you.
Thank you. Thanks for the introduction. Look, so with Microsoft, it can be a little bit more confusing and a little bit, there's a lot more to it. So a lot of small to medium business owners kind of get a little bit confused as to what to do or where to go or how to configure their environments in the best way to keep their information secure and to also access it remotely. Everyone, as we all know, is a lot more dispersed now. So people are trying to access information from home or outside of the office. And we really need to make sure that people are doing it in a safe and secure way to minimize and mitigate as much risk as possible of any data breach. So I'm going to start sharing my screen here. Let me know when this starts working for you.
Yeah. And once we've got that going, I'm going to drop off and make sure everything runs in the background. Looks good.
Cool, great. Well, welcome to the flexible future of working, or that's what I call the current environment, right? This is the future. Well, this is the now, actually. When I was presenting these slides some time ago, I was talking about this is the future. This is how we're going to be working, and people kind of like, what are you talking about? That's a bit crazy, But essentially, this is kind of where it's come down to. A lot of people just that we're not in the office anymore. And in fact, I probably spend more of my time outside of the office presenting in this exact same way to many of the clients around New Zealand. Now, my name's Erron Soon. I'm the technical sales consultant for digital services, otherwise known as the Microsoft 365 specialist at Ricoh, New Zealand. I'm just going to take you through some slides here. Now, thank you for tuning in this morning. Essentially, what we're going to be talking about is Microsoft 365 Cloud Security, and we'll talk about some of the essentials for your business. We'll start off with a little bit of an introduction about Ricoh and about myself. We'll then talk about cybersecurity awareness and a couple of key points here. So key point number one, why security is an important part for a robust IT infrastructure. Key point number two is the threats of having gaps in your security environment. Number three is how you can protect your business data from a security breach. And we'll then also talk about a digital boost provider offer, which is something we haven't done before, which is very interesting. And I think you'll find a bit of value out of that. And then we'll have a Q&A session at the end. As Anamari said earlier on, if you've got any questions, feel free to drop it in the chat box there. Whichever way you're connecting and viewing this stream this morning, and then we will answer those as they come up. A little bit about myself. I'm a technical, in my current role, I'm a technical sales consultant for digital services, but I've had over 15 years in the IT industry, spanning a lot of different roles. In the last 15 years also, I've had my own businesses and opened and closed some small businesses as well. So I've got a lot of experience. So I understand what small businesses are going through and are experiencing, especially when it comes to IT security, right? This includes 7 years specializing in pre-sales consultation and engineering for large enterprise businesses as well. And I've gone as far as designing proof of concepts, implementing and deploying large-scale projects for the likes of Fonterra, Air New Zealand, the Warehouse Group, Fletcher Building, New Zealand Post, etc. So you can literally point anywhere on the New Zealand map, and I'll be able to tell you a story about how I got there, what I was doing there for a client, and you know, some of the cool stories that IT can take you to these places all around New Zealand. Now, why is a printer company, or why is an organization which is synonymous for printing in the last 3 decades in New Zealand, if not more, now talking to you about IT services and security? Well, this is a little bit about the DNA. This is a little bit about who we are from Ricoh New Zealand, and some of our core capabilities. As you can see, we are a gold Microsoft CSP, cloud solution provider. Okay, and I'll explain a little bit about what that means shortly. But essentially, we started a very long time ago around managed print services. Okay, we then quickly moved through to IT services and through to workplace technology services, which includes visual communication and collaboration solutions. We also, along the line, developed digital transformation services around information capture, management, and automation. And recently, well, not recently now, but within the last 5 years, we started financial services, which provided a simple consumption model for technology services. Now we can provide technology as a service, right? So again, Ricoh, in a global form, we are synonymous with printers. However, in New Zealand, we have transformed and moved through to IT services very, very quickly, and are now becoming one of the fastest and largest growing IT providers in New Zealand. Microsoft Gold CSP is a huge thing, and there are over 64,000 Microsoft partners worldwide. However, only 1% of Microsoft partners worldwide are Gold certified. And what that really means for us and for our clients is that Gold competency represents the highest standard, highest certifications available for Microsoft partners. Okay, we have over 20 in-house Microsoft certified engineers in our organization, right? So for our clients, what this means is that they can rest assured that we can deliver on full Microsoft 365 deployment capability, right? We've been delivering Microsoft 365 migrations, integrations, and cloud printing solutions for many years. And we obviously offer the full IT managed service support model across New Zealand. We've got 26 branches nationwide with 5 key main branches being Auckland, Palmerston North, Wellington, Christchurch, and Dunedin. And Hamilton. Sorry, 6, it's kind of underneath my picture there. We must undergo regular audits to demonstrate our proficiency, skill set, and experience. And Gold certification indicates that a partner meets rigorous standards set by Microsoft. Right, so let's talk about Microsoft Teams, okay? Because Teams forms a very, very strong part of Microsoft 365 and has driven the consumption of 365 through the roof because of, well, the likes of lockdown and dispersed workforce and so on and so forth. Now, Microsoft, are not very forthcoming with some of their data in terms of active users in millions, but this is what I've been able to find. In April 2021, we're looking at 145 million daily active users, right? And if we wind it back 1 year, we were only looking at 75 million, and I say only, but you know, that's a growth of it's jumped twice as many users, active users, in 1 year. We then kind of wind it back to, let's say, 2019, and almost around the same time in 2019, 2 years ago, there was only 13 million active users in Teams. So it's grown exponentially over the last 2 years. And if you can kind of cast your mind back 2 years ago, before we went into lockdown, people weren't using Zoom or using Teams, not nearly as much as obviously what we're using now. Back then it was almost unheard of. Like, why are we video conferencing when we can just go and meet and go and talk to each other and face to face? And I still enjoy doing that when I can. Like, as I said earlier on, I love traveling, and it's great being able to get around New Zealand and meeting our clients face to face. But this literally is the future, and this is the way that we are going to be working going forward. For businesses, you can save a lot of money on travel. You can reduce a lot of costs from not having to meet face to face. And I can, quite frankly, fit in a lot more meetings without having to transit between airports and travel between sites. So I find that this kind of future way of working is a bit more efficient and more productive. Okay, so COVID and the requirement to meet and continue doing business as usual during lockdown restrictions has driven the consumption of Microsoft Teams, and in turn the growth of Microsoft Office and Microsoft 365. As you may already know, it's Cybersecurity Month, right? And this is kind of an initiative driven from the Cybersecurity Infrastructure Security Agency in America, right? So this is their kind of tagline: do your part, be cyber smart. And New Zealand is slowly starting to adopt the same stance around cybersecurity awareness, which is great. Now in its 18th year, the Cybersecurity Awareness Month continues to raise awareness of the importance of cybersecurity. Right. So in America, again, this organization, CISA, has 4 different weeks and 4 different key topics. In New Zealand, we have an organization, a government organization called the Computer Emergency Response Team, right? CERT New Zealand. And the Cyber Smart Week 2021 is starts from the 18th of October. But basically, if you keep an eye out on their website, they will have new information or more information around increasing New Zealanders' cyber resilience, right? By giving you more information and tips and tricks on ways that you can protect yourself from cybersecurity threats. So it's a kind of it's something that I've been following up for a very long time, headed out of the US. But it's only of recent times where New Zealand's kind of taken that on board due to the obviously increase of cybersecurity threats happening here in New Zealand. Now, with cybersecurity incidents and threats, they're not restricted to only America. They're not only restricted to some foreign country, New Zealand. New Zealand on the global stage as well is just as much of a target as anybody, right? Hackers aren't geographically bound to certain borders, right? So anybody who's transacting in New Zealand, anybody who's conducting business via email or sharing information and data across the web in cloud state, really do need to protect themselves from hackers anywhere. And we've even seen instances where hackers are originating from New Zealand as well, right? So cybersecurity awareness is a real thing, and it's great that New Zealand is taking it seriously through the month of October. We'll talk about some of the reports or some of the highlights from the CERT New Zealand Q2, Q2 2021 report. And CERT New Zealand talks about the average number of incidents per quarter is around 1,600, and average direct financial loss per quarter is around $4 million. Now, this is real New Zealand figures. These aren't figures which are on a global level. These aren't figures which are from the US. These are real New Zealand figures, and CERT New Zealand is responsible for providing this information in a public forum. Okay, so just over 1,300 incidents were responded to by CERT New Zealand in Q2, which is kind of down 6% from Q1, but I would expect it to spike in Q3 because that's when we start seeing the true nature of what's been happening from lockdown, okay, from this latest lockdown, incident level 4. Just under $4 million in direct financial losses reported in Q2, which is a 30% increase from Q1. Unauthorized access reports increased by 37% from Q1 and 150% increase in ransomware reports from Q1. So as you can see, these numbers are quite scary, and we're talking big numbers here. And again, a lot of small to medium business kind of think, well, how is this relevant for me? I don't have any cybersecurity instances, or I've never had any issues. But that, all I can say is that's until now, right? Going forwards, it's kind of roughly known that just under 50% of small to medium businesses are going to be or are going to have a security incident this year. And if it's not this year, then unfortunately next year your odds aren't that great. So the number of incidents responded to in Q2 were around, again, it's dropping off in terms of a trend here, but this is to reflect the COVID lockdown level that New Zealand basically has been plunged into. You can see here 2020 Q3, that's when we had a huge spike, which was trailing on from Q2, or ramping up from Q2 and Q1. If you cast your mind back around about, I believe it was Q1 2020, that's kind of when we went into lockdown in New Zealand the very, very first time. So you can see it kind of ramps up and it's kind of leveled out, and it's going to ramp up again. Now, the breakdown by incident category with that Cert New Zealand reported on is, of those 1,400 incidences, around 600 of them were phishing credential harvesting. Now, phishing specifically refers to email being sent to you and someone then clicking on an email or responding or taking a call to action on what was contained in that email. So for example, if there was an attachment in that email, or if there was a link in that email, someone has clicked on that, and then credentials have been harvested from that, okay? The 390 were scams and fraud, 170 were unauthorized access, and then 32 of malware, ransomware, and so on and so forth, right? So again, these numbers are real New Zealand numbers. And in fact, over the weekend, actually, I had a kind of an incident with my own bank account, right? I went to use my bank account and did some shopping online. And the next minute, I knew when I went to go and use my card at an actual petrol station, they said, sorry, your card's not working. Oh, that's interesting. So then I got a call from my bank kind of like within 2 or 3 minutes. And I thought, now this is weird. No, because I didn't know it was from my bank. It was kind of like from a private number. And I answered it anyway. And they're like, oh, hey, it's such and such calling from the bank. And I'm like, okay. And they're like, yeah, we just need to verify your information. If you can just tell us a little bit more about yourself, give us your name, your address, your date of birth. I'm just like, well, hang on. If you're calling from the bank, you should have that information already. And how do I even know you're calling from the bank? And they're like, yeah, look, you're 100% right. Give us a call back on a number that you trust, and then we can go from there. So I obviously then looked up the number on the website and then gave that number a call, and then went through it, and it was the bank. But you can't be too careful, because if someone has got your information and got your credentials and are going to try and use it and fail to access that information, they may even reach out to you and pretend to be a service provider, a trusted provider, to try and get more information out of you. So credential harvesting is a real threat. And more clients that I talk to during this future way of working, people keep saying to me, they get these iTunes requests for vouchers or codes, and they may be sent to a new person within the organization. And it may pretend to be from someone higher up within the organization saying, hey, I need you to transfer or buy these iTunes cards or gift cards, and then send me the codes because I need to use those codes, but I can't get to them at the moment for whatever reason. And it's crazy, and it sounds really, really strange, but a number of people fall for that, right? And a number of organizations come to Ricoh and say, hey, look, how do we prevent this from happening? Or we've got so much spam lately. What's going on? How do we eliminate a lot of this stuff? So focus area is around ransomware and the increasing number of ransomware attacks. Okay, so ransomware is a type of malicious software that can get into a computer system when someone clicks on a link or an attachment in a phishing email, or from simply the vulnerability or weakness in out-of-date software. The number of ransomware reports responded by Search NZ increased this quarter. There were about 30 reports of ransomware in Q2, up from 12 in Q1, mostly from businesses and organizations. Now, ransomware is not just, an email attachment. This is the next step. This is when someone's actually had their infrastructure, their computers, and their file storages all locked up from executing an attachment or clicking on something that they shouldn't have. You'll cast your mind back and remember the probably New Zealand's most well-known cybersecurity incident to date, the Waikato DHB incident. Right now, that was classed as a ransomware attack. So there are 30 reported incidences of ransomware in Q2 alone. So that's one a day. That's one ransomware event, which has taken a business offline, one incident per day, which is huge, which is starting to really get up there. While most ransomware incidences don't report a direct financial loss, the costs of recovery can be significant and include data loss and operational impact. Now, for the likes of Waikato DHB, it took them, 4 to 5 weeks before they can fully get back online and have some of those services restored. And to date, from my understanding, there is still a loss of service in some key areas. Now, we're talking about a very large organization with government backing here. Now, if this were to happen to a small to medium business, what would the impact be for your organization if you were taken offline for 4 to 5 weeks? That would be devastating. It would be huge. Once ransomware has infected a computer, it encrypts files so they can't be read or accessed. Okay, so then a ransom is demanded for the files to be restored, with costs varying from a few $100s to millions of dollars, depending on the information they have. Now, for healthcare, for financial providers, for professional service providers, for manufacturing with IP, intellectual property, again, people can be inclined to pay for that information to ensure that the information isn't released on the dark web or isn't used in any manner. So again, it's huge money for these hackers to be doing this, unfortunately, for small to medium businesses in New Zealand. As reflected in the Cert New Zealand data, the types of attacks have grown in number, and in the past 2 years, attacks on businesses and organizations around the globe has scaled in severity, right? So impacting private and public services and disrupting the lives of many people. Why is it increasing? Ransomware attacks are financially motivated. In some instances, ransoms have been paid. This has resulted in an increase in criminal groups carrying out these attacks. So how it works is different ransomware variants use different techniques to try and access devices and encrypt files. However, there are some common ways this happens, and most ransomware attacks follow one of few predictable paths. I've got a cool little graphic here to explain, but essentially most of the entries for attack come via phishing, right? Which is, again, a targeted email, an email targeted to your organization, maybe targeted to specific people within your organization, to get usernames and passwords, right? Hackers can also password guess, but it doesn't happen so much anymore because people are a little bit more clued on around smarter passwords, right? But that can still happen. So for people who use really, really basic passwords, those accounts can be compromised very, very easily. Hackers also like to use exploits and software weaknesses. So, for example, if you're using out-of-date software or software which hasn't been patched, or security or operating systems that haven't been patched, that is a way to get access to internet-exposed systems. And again, email, just your standard email being sent out directly to organizations, like spam email, with attachments of malicious documents and software. Okay. Again, it goes through to access. Attacker attempts to gain access to all devices. Once they have your information, your credentials, once they've harvested your credentials by way of a phishing or an email attack, they'll then try and gain access to your device. Okay. Now, with full access, an attacker can take control of a target's computer and data, and the impact on a target is to steal business data, or destroy backups, or encrypt the data. Now, in most cases, some attackers don't even let people know that they're there. They're fully just observing and just exfiltrating data without people knowing they're there, right? And then once they have enough information, or once they've encrypted enough data, that's when they really will strike, and that's when they will then really do damage to the business, right? In terms of the ransom, well, that's the target outcome here, is that a demand for ransom for data recovery and confidentiality is extorted from the unfortunate victim, right? So a lot of this takes place, again, via email, okay? And let's talk about the importance around maintaining a robust IT infrastructure. Okay, so Anamari, are there any questions, or is there anything that that anyone has brought up that I may need to answer before we move on to the next topic?
Not so far. I'm just kind of monitoring here in the back. I'll just double check Facebook because that's usually another place. No, we're all good. Yeah.
Oh, right. I know it's a lot of information to take in, and anybody who knows me knows that I'm probably talking about half the speed I normally talk at. I usually talk really, really quickly to cover
that's
a lot
good.
of,
Yeah,
to
your
cover
pace
a lot
is
of
really good. Easy to understand.
Yeah, great. Normally I have a lot of information to cover, and you know, some of my sales account managers generally book me for half an hour when I say, look, you always book me for at least an hour because I can talk for hours about the stuff. And actually, the hardest part to put these slides together was trying to condense as much information as possible while still trying to deliver the clear and concise message. So that was a challenge for me. But anyway,
yeah.
Yeah, I can talk for hours about this stuff, but
now we do have a question. It says, is it safe to use Norton backup and the other protections that they offer?
Yeah, Norton's been a name again. Norton's been a name synonymous for antivirus security from the advent of computing. Essentially, they've been around for a very, very long time. And I remember as a young child thinking to myself, wow, what is this Norton 360, or what is this Norton antivirus on my computer, you know, which came with my computer, which was, you know, now they're asking me to pay for a license. That's interesting. But anyway, so yes, applications like those are still considered safe and easy to use. And you do have to pay for a license for these applications. Everything is now moving to a pay-as-you-go license type subscription. One of the key things, or one of the really cool things about Microsoft 365 is that they build in antivirus and security in the business premium range of products, right? So that's kind of skipping ahead a little bit. You can use third-party antivirus, and why we would always recommend doing that, using an antivirus. One comes with Microsoft 365 by default, right? And we'll talk a little bit about that later on, but that's a really good question.
Yeah, great.
You cannot have too much protection in terms of backing up and in terms of antivirus, okay? But yes, keep the questions coming. It's a good question. So let's come back to the key points before we kind of go off track. Again, I will go down this dark rabbit hole of information security otherwise. So why security is an important part for a robust IT infrastructure? The increased usage of cloud, so increased cloud adoption. With the constant and speedy evolution of technology, an increasing number of businesses are adopting cloud computing and hoping to gain secure and easy access to important data. However, this has given the rise to larger risks of cyber attacks and data breach crimes associated with insecure or ill-managed cloud security. So organizations are really trying to make business as usual, or trying to make their staff able to access information, but at the same time, because everything's quite rushed, everything, a lot of organizations didn't have business continuity plans in place ready to go. It was kind of difficult getting users access to the information, right? So that can be done, or that has been done in most cases, or a lot of cases, in a way that isn't as secure, isn't best practice, right? So that has opened a real gaping hole for a lot of these cyber attacks. Increasingly sophisticated threats. So as technology innovations are evolving, so the types of cyber threats, the presence and extent of cloud services further enhance the risk of these threats, from basic ransomware and malware to phishing attacks, data breaches, and identity thefts, etc. Expanding the realm of connected devices. With the ever-expanding realm of connected smart devices that are cloud connected and leverage the Internet of Things, Managing cloud and device security and data protection are becoming increasingly difficult, from personal entertainment and leisure. So you're talking about your iPads, your phones, you're accessing Spotify from home, you're accessing your Google Drive, you're accessing your Microsoft OneDrives, you're accessing your iClouds, for example. And you're using the same devices to work across work and leisure, right? So that's what the expanded realm of connected devices refers to. So from personal entertainment and leisure to robotics and automation in sensitive areas like healthcare, manufacturing, finance, logistics, have further enhanced the significant and urgent need for cloud security infrastructure across all businesses. So it doesn't matter really how big or small your business is, having a robust IT infrastructure is key. The threats of having, key point number 2, the threats of having gaps in your security environment. So unpreparedness. Organizations cannot afford to be unprepared anymore. Organizations must test the defenses before a breach occurs and be ready to respond when required. Failing to expect and respond to breaches will come at a high cost as organizations struggle to resume businesses. So again, we're obviously all in New Zealand here, and we've taken a kind of she'll be right attitude, and that's kind of got everyone okay thus far. And especially for small to medium businesses, it's kind of like security. Yeah, look, I will just deal with that later. I haven't had any issues so far. Let's just hope that we'll be okay. And we kind of just put it to the background, and then now we've got to deal with some other issues that may be a bit more, not important, but a bit more kind of forefront of mind, right? Security is still one of those things which is ticking along the back of your mind, which kind of was like, we really need to get that sorted and really need to be prepared for it. Because what happens if we have a security breach? What happens if our emails are all taken offline? How will our businesses continue? How will my staff continue accessing information next week or tomorrow or even later on today, right? So again, organizations must prepare for this, just like we have fire drills, just like how we have fire evacuations and testing. We really should be prepared and having the same tests and drills ready for when your data goes offline or if there is an attack, right? We need to have a business continuity plan in place for when those incidences happen, because it's only a matter of time, unfortunately. Is it too late? Attackers may have infiltrated an organization's network already and are just waiting for the right opportunity to strike. It is recommended that organizations conduct active threat hunting to intercept these attempts and to stop attacks before they happen. Active threat hunting can be done if proper monitoring systems are in place. Now, for a small to medium business, that's highly reliant on a managed service provider like Ricoh to have these monitoring tools in place for those organizations to then monitor the dark web for them, or to be monitoring their file storages to see if information is being encrypted. So Ricoh have a wide range of tools which are able to do that for our clients, right? And we are able to then identify ransomware or an encryption or a ransomware attack happening before it even is fully completed, or before it's even it locked up all your files. We've been able to see that happening and taking place, and we can then stop that. We can then stop access to that information so that we can preempt the attack happening. Right, mobile, home, and travel security. In modern organizations, employees commonly work on the go or out of the office. This means that any form of cybersecurity implemented in the organization must be extended beyond the perimeters of the office. Mobile devices and laptops must be secured, and employees have to be made aware of the risks and response plans. So again, as people are onboarded into organizations, training is paramount, right? We need to increase the resilience of the human firewall. And, the security of an organization is only as strong as its weakest link. And if you've invested thousands or hundreds into securing your online presence, when you onboard a new staff member, it's equally as important to make sure they have the correct training and they have the correct information and procedures, so they're made aware of the risks and the response plans if they do receive one of these emails or if they are presented with a potential risk. And key point number 3, how you can protect your business data from a security breach. Okay, so bring in a cybersecurity specialist. This is our job. Again, this is what we do all day, every day, is to scale through data and to make sure that our clients are safe and secure, and to ensure that we're up to date, top of mind with the latest data breaches, with the latest security patches, exploits, and vulnerabilities, right? So that's our job. Bring us on, or bring people on that are specialists in that field to then protect your organization. It's the same thing again when you need a law expert or an accounting expert, right? You would bring on the specialist to make sure that your business is covered. It's one of those, again, one of those kind of very, very complicated and very, very quickly confusing aspects of your business, right? So bring on the specialist. Educate your organization on past data breaches by bringing in a cybersecurity specialist to speak about best practices and how to keep security top of mind. The harsh reality is even the biggest organizations and companies can be hacked. The most useful thing you can do is educate yourself on recent incidents and make sure the correct protection is in place to prevent the possibility of a similar data breach. Keep business and private personal accounts separate. So for small to medium business owners and staff, this can be quite tricky, but we would highly recommend doing this. And I was actually tuned in to the accounting session on Friday, and that was another real key point as well, where you keep your business and your personal bank accounts separate. So it's the same thing for your logins as well, right? So have separate emails for your business, your personal, and your banking. If someone hacks your personal email and passes from a personal site, they cannot access your business or banking sites using the same information. So again, segregate and keep those siloed and separated. Build awareness. So a change of attitude is paramount. Most successful attacks use social engineering rather than brute force. So again, people aren't, or the hackers aren't just kind of guessing your passwords so much anymore, or they're not kind of putting your password through a list and checking to see if it is that password. Most hacks use social engineering. So as much as it pains me to say this, the amount of information that people are sharing on social media and the likes of LinkedIn, for example, can be too much, right? And some organizations, some very security conscious organizations, clients of ours, they've come to me and they've basically said, hey, look, should we be sharing this information on our website, right? Or should we be sharing as much information on LinkedIn? And my honest answer is no, you should probably scale back on some of that stuff, because very, very switched on hackers will then use that information against you. So for a small to medium business, it's very, very common for those organizations to have a website which has, let's say, about us, right? And it basically lists everybody within the organization with a nice profile photo and a little bit of history about them and what they do and what their position is and what their phone number is and maybe what their email address is as well. Hackers love that information. They look at it and go, great, they're building a list, or they're building a structure of that organization. Okay, they can then say they are this person at the top, now wanting to talk to this person down here who may be a new starter, for example, right? And that's where you get this whole, hey, I need some iTunes cards or voucher codes sent to me. Can you please use the company credit card, purchase those, and then send me the codes, right? I'll be working in a place where I don't have much internet access, so I can't do this myself, and I really need this done. So please, can you just send this to me ASAP, right? A lot of people fall for that stuff. And all that information, those spear phishing attacks take place because of the amount of information we ourselves put out on social media or out on the web. LinkedIn, again, is a huge contributor to that. At any stage, I can look at an organization and kind of figure out, right, who's where and what do they do within an organization, and then use that information against that organization. So again, build awareness around that, right? The next steps would be to strengthen passwords and use multi-factor authentication, right? So multi-factor authentication is really becoming best practice and the next step in enforcing or taking that security to the next level, because you can't fake multi-factor authentication, right? What that generally requires is the hacker to have access to the mobile phone, which is registered to the account also. and that's near on impossible. You can't fake that information. You can't, you will, a lot of small to medium business owners who use Zero will realize within the last year multi-factor has become mandatory, right? And a lot of clients of mine have come to me and said, hey, what is this and why is this happening, and why do we have to do this? It's kind of annoying having to verify with my mobile phone. But at the end of the day, it's the only way to really securely identify that person is who they say they are, by using a multi-factor authentication.
We've got a couple of questions, Erin. I don't know if you'd like to take them now.
Absolutely, yeah, go for it. Yeah.
So it says, I use Trend Micro Maximum, do all the updates and checks. Can I trust that there is nothing in the computer that can cause harm?
Yeah, that's a good question. Now, what I'm talking about here thus far is really around the Microsoft 365 infrastructure or the ecosystem. What I haven't really accounted for is anything such as Wi-Fi security. We haven't talked anything around BitLocker. We haven't talked anything around file sharing security. We haven't talked about other applications, right? So again, computer security or IT security is a very, very wide, I mean, there are so many topics and so many avenues for attack. We've kind of just breached not even the tip of the iceberg. I would say, basically a snowball in terms of the amount or the number of ways that a hacker can attack or use or access an environment. Using Trend Micro is a great start, but I wouldn't just stop there. I mean, having antivirus is good, but again, there are so many different ways a hacker can access your environment. We call those attack surfaces, right? There's so many different attack surfaces a hacker can use to gain access or to infiltrate or to access information. So while you have antivirus, again, that's a really good start. But a lot of these hackers kind of make their way around that, right? They kind of, they develop their own viruses, and with Trend Micro and Norton, which was brought up earlier on, those softwares rely on the virus signatures being captured and then being stored in a database, right? And then any sort of malicious software is checked in terms of signatures against that database. If it's a fairly new hack, or if it's a fairly new virus, then it may not be in that database as of yet, right? Especially if it's a homegrown, if it's something that's born out of, let's say, someone's created locally here in New Zealand and is then spreading it through local businesses, that may not even be on Trend or Norton's radar yet. So again, those are things to consider. And also, those antivirus software, they're only as good as they being updated, right? So if they're out of date, if they aren't patched, or if you aren't updating those antivirus software databases, then you really are kind of being left behind there and leaving yourself at risk.
Another couple questions as well. Yeah. Does Microsoft have any products like Malwarebytes?
Yeah, look, with Microsoft, they don't have products specifically, let's say, available for direct consumption by consumer, if that makes sense. You kind of can't just go to an IT store. You kind of can't go to PB Tech and go, hey, I just want Microsoft antivirus. They don't do it that way. They've been very, very smart in the way they do this. They do have it, right? But it's built into Microsoft 365. So by way of advanced threat protection, which is a function within Microsoft 365, again, I'm going to start going a little bit down this rabbit hole here, but we'll kind of bring ourselves back to the key point very, very shortly. But with Microsoft 365, that refers to having all of your information inside Microsoft's Azure, inside Microsoft's cloud infrastructure, okay? And when you store your information inside Microsoft Azure or Microsoft's cloud, such as your emails, by taking your emails online to Microsoft 365, when you take your files online to Microsoft SharePoint and Microsoft OneDrive, all of that information is then being protected in a multi-billion-dollar data center, right? Now, Microsoft invests heavily in their infrastructure and invests heavily in their cloud services, to the tune of the building a data center in New Zealand, which people will have seen in the news as of recent times, which is costing them around $100 million, right? And Microsoft globally invests $1 billion US in keeping the information secure and investing in cybersecurity, right? So we're relying on Microsoft, and we're putting our data in Microsoft's very, very capable hands to then protect that information. And they're then providing it to users, to end users, as a subscription, right? So while you can't go out and just go to PB Tech or, your Dick Smith Electronics, rest in peace. I can remember going down to Dick Smith back in the day and buying myself, oh yeah, I want 1 year of antivirus. I'll go buy that off the shelf, get a little box and take that home. I've probably got boxes of those somewhere in my home here somewhere. But, Microsoft aren't doing that. They're not doing it in the same way. Everything is done as a subscription based. Now, for organizations, and I'll talk about this very, very shortly, everyone who uses Microsoft Word, Excel, PowerPoint, Microsoft Office or Outlook will be paying a subscription. Okay. And there are different levels of subscription based on what it is your organization requires. Where I want to really point out is that the advanced threat protection and the antivirus and security stuff really takes place in the business premium level of licenses. Okay. That's where you want to be for your organization, because that's what provides the most and the best protection for your organization. Okay, so I know it's a long answer, but hopefully that answers your question. Microsoft don't have a specific product that you go buy off the shelf. It's included in your licensing as long as you've got the correct license and as long as it's configured correctly.
Okay, a couple more questions. Will you tell us how to implement multi-factor security on the 365 email and other apps?
Yeah, look, I can't. It would. I would need another 2 or 3 sessions at least to be able to do that. And I don't know if I can book that with you right now. But with multi-factor authentication, it's something that is best left to specialists, right? It's best left to the organizations such as Ricoh, who do this all day, every day for our clients to enable and to make sure it's set up correctly. Because having the license is one thing, right? And then turning it on is another thing, but configuring it correctly and tailoring the configuration for your business that's really key into making sure that you are fully protected. So whilst multi-factor authentication is great and is industry best practice and where everyone should be heading, it needs to be configured correctly. So I can't just say, here is a how-to guide on enabling it. It really needs to be done properly, right? Just to make sure that there aren't any holes or that there aren't any gaps that need to be filled in. Okay. There is a lot of information around multi-factor authentication online and available. So if you do really want to, in the meantime, feel free to look up some of the information. But multi-factor authentication is Ricoh's minimum. It's the minimum that we require for our clients to be fully protected. Just quickly, going back to where I said this is the future way of working, right? I've been talking to clients over the last couple of years around organizations moving away from passwords, right? Or individuals moving away from passwords, or passwords not even being required going forward. And some people are like, you're talking rubbish. That's crazy. Like, what, password, like, we need passwords. Everyone has a password to identify themselves, right? But essentially where we're going with this is that with passwords being such a critical, I guess, being such a vulnerable bit of information that a hacker may use to gain access, access to IT is now being done in the way of identity profiles, right? So multi-factor authentication and identity profiles really will replace the requirement for passwords. And in fact, Microsoft are currently conducting a trial at the moment for people who want to opt in on it to completely do away from passwords altogether. Right, again, which sounds a bit crazy. It's like, how do you then gain access to information? So multi-factor forms a key part of that. One of the also really, really cool things about my bank is that now I have a voice identification profile, right? So I don't use a password anymore to access my online banking via phone. So let's say, for example, if I wanted to call my bank and talk about some services, or if I wanted to identify myself, I literally say a passphrase, which I'm not going to tell you, obviously, because you could record it and then use it against me. But my voice can be used to then identify who I am, right? So again, that's just further strengthening the the reliance of multi-factor authentication and building identity profiles and moving away from passwords. Because if I gave you my password, you could pretend to be me and then access the same information, but I couldn't give you my identity, right? So hopefully that makes a bit of sense as to where IT security is going. We're moving away from passwords and moving more towards identity profiles, right? So your biometrics for when you scan in on your iPhone or on your Android device, or even on your laptop when you've got biometrics, and even for some the newer laptops where you've got your visual sign-on via Microsoft Hello, which basically uses your webcam to identify who you are and scans your face. You can then two-factor authentication with biometrics as well to even further enhance security around accessing your information.
Very cool. Okay, there's a couple more questions here. My name and email did get used for the iTunes card scam as I'm heading an association. Sadly enough, the person fell for it, and it cost us $1,200, a lot of money, but luckily we recovered some. Just saying safety is so important. Yeah, thank you so much for sharing that. It does happen. My brother's had his identity stolen before, and they racked up like 10 grand worth of stuff. So it does happen.
It does.
There's another comment or question here that says, does using an external hard drive, which gets disconnected when PC is not used, help to stop hackers to infiltrate?
Yeah, having external hard drives were a great idea. And I'm saying were because they're not common as much anymore, especially in leading edge or businesses which are more up to date with security. Now, let me explain. Storing your information on an external hard drive is great in terms of backing up, but if that data is already compromised, let's say if there is already a bit of malware which is residing in that data, backing it up to an external hard drive is not doing you any bit of good at all, because the information is already potentially compromised, right? So storing that info, and to be honest, external hard drives, they do get corrupt and they do stop working after a certain period of time, just like any IT device, right? I wouldn't plug in an external hard drive from 5 years ago and still expect it to work, with that corrupted data. And a lot of people are still using that as their primary form of backup, which is a scary thought, actually, because if that external hard drive is either lost, damaged, stolen, or corrupted, then you don't have a backup, which is terrible. So my advice would be to stop using external hard drive and start using a secure cloud storage environment, such as Microsoft OneDrive or Microsoft SharePoint. Again, with Microsoft OneDrive and SharePoint, they are included with your business licenses from Microsoft 365. Right, and are then backed up and protected by Microsoft's Azure cloud environment and their engineers. So gone are the days of now having to swap out external hard drives, and I know some businesses still do this, and there are businesses out there. Gone are the days of backing everything up to external hard drives, and you should really then start considering backing up your data to the cloud. In a properly set up cloud environment, it's far more secure, because the information is then scanned actively and virus signatures are then checked against that information, right? With an external backup, you're literally just dumping all your information there, putting it away, and hoping that that the information on there isn't already compromised, or your computer isn't compromised, and then you're copying information onto there. So again, you're kind of just copying it over, hopefully it's good, and then one day you're going to plug it in and you're going to need that backup, and it isn't going to work, or hopefully it is going to work. So again, having an active cloud storage, secure file storage in the cloud is a more sensible way of doing things. So hopefully that answers that question. Right. Again, that's part of what I just mentioned here in the last line. Using multi-factor authentication, antivirus, and data backup solutions is really key here. A couple more points. Involve employees in protecting your data. So many data breaches happen by accident. The best thing a business can do is train its employees regularly on how to encrypt data, how to generate strong passwords, how to properly file and store data, and how to avoid malware. Limiting employee access to websites outside of scope of their daily duties are also helpful, but no one really likes, an organization that kind of blocks Facebook. But, it is what it is. An educated workforce is your best defense. So again, strengthening that human firewall really is important for organizations. Instill a heightened sense of urgency. Many times, businesses do not have a process to secure the data. Additionally, employees are not properly trained to protect against the breach. There needs to be a heightened sense of security to control the data by establishing the proper process and training. Enforce restrictive data permissions. Most data breaches are not sophisticated attacks through unknown backdoors. However, most breaches occur through the front door due to an employee breach. Again, that's referring to me when I talked about sharing information on social media, sharing information on LinkedIn, sharing information on your website, right? Hackers use that information to access or to spearfish an organization. Businesses should constantly ensure that employees only have access to the vital information necessary to do their jobs. Restrictive data permissions are vital to ensuring that these types of breaches do not occur. Now, I'm mindful that I've only got another 10 minutes, essentially. So let's quickly get through the next couple of slides, but probably the most important one or the most exciting slide that I've got to present. So our digital boost provider offer from Ricoh is a free Ricoh Microsoft Cloud Security Assessment. Now, this is normally valued at over $1,000, okay? And what we do here is we manage and assess risks across your entire Microsoft 365 ecosystem, including services which you use every day, such as Teams, Outlook, email, SharePoint, and OneDrive. So what we're offering here is a free cloud security assessment across your organization. You can then use that assessment to then understand the risks that your organization currently has in terms of Microsoft 365 and how we can then remediate those issues and those risks. So this is a very, very powerful assessment. Our security assessment solution will deliver the following for your business: complete Microsoft Cloud Security Assessment, identify missing security controls in your Microsoft 365 ecosystem, and recommend industry best practice remediation to mitigate or eliminate the identified risks. So to attain this offer, head over to the digitalboostbusiness.govt.nz website and look through the offers and find Ricoh. From there, it'll jump you through to the Ricoh website where there's a specific form you need to fill out. I can then get back to you directly and we can then kickstart and get that underway. Now, the offer is valid from today through to the 10th of December, right? So I would say get onto it ASAP, because again, hackers don't wait until Christmas. They're 24/7, they're ready to go anytime. So we want to make sure that you are covered as an organization to make sure that we've got an assessment ready and done so that we can then take the next step. Now, this is valid for businesses with a minimum of 10 users of Microsoft 365. And I understand there are a lot of organizations out there which still use Gmail and Google or may use another provider. But if you are using Microsoft 365, this is free for you, okay? If you are considering moving across to Microsoft 365 from Google, from G Suite, please, again, reach out to myself, reach out to Ricoh New Zealand, and we can help you migrate across to a far more secure, far more scalable, robust system. Okay, this is the fastest, most comprehensive Microsoft Cloud Security Assessment available, okay? What this does is it sheds light on the Microsoft 365 ecosystem with a wide range of reports and industry best practice recommendations. By periodically running assessments on your Microsoft 365 environment, Ricoh can provide you with essential reports that will help control the flow, privacy, and security of your organization's data and information. By definition, cloud-based solutions are always exposed to outside attackers, and continual vigilance is required to ensure misconfigurations don't lead to security incidents. The Ricoh Microsoft Cloud Security Assessment taps into Microsoft's own security score rating, and we use it to then expose areas of highest risk and vulnerability. So again, this assessment normally costs over $1,000, but we are offering it free to any Digital Boost subscribers as an offer. So head over to the Digital Boost website to get hold of that offer. This is an example. This is a quick sample of a real assessment that I've done within the last few weeks for an organization. I've obviously blanked out any client-specific information. However, with this particular client, their information was on the dark web. Okay. And the way we were able to see that is because of the number of login attempts from multiple countries around the world. Again, this is a real New Zealand company. You can see it's a .co.nz address. Okay. And I've blanked out that information. But you can see here that they've had multiple login attempts from Thailand, from Brazil, from China, from India, from Korea, from the US. Okay. So again, that was a huge wake-up call for that organization, because they were just up until that point, they were like, yeah, no, we're sweet, we're fine with security. You know, we have a provider which should be doing that for us. All right. So again, they were unaware totally that the information was being accessed and the information was being shared on the dark web until we did an assessment, said, hang on, this is what we found, right? Here is what we need to change, and here are the risks and issues around your organization that we would remediate. For more information, again, as I said earlier on, I can talk for hours and hours and hours, and I've really just touched on the very, very tip of the iceberg here. But if you want more information around Microsoft 365 licensing, backup, endpoint security, Microsoft Productivity Score, or the Microsoft Secure Score, mobile device management, Microsoft Azure migration, Microsoft SharePoint migration, Azure Virtual Desktop, Teams Business Voice, Windows Autopilot, or even email phishing and security training, prepaid managed services, or technology roadmaps, please reach out to Ricoh. Just head over to our website, ricoh.co.nz, and click on the Contact Us page. You will then be put through to us. But essentially, there is so much more. There are so many other attack services and avenues of attack for a hacker that it doesn't just stop at emails. There is just so much more to it as well. So, Anna-Maria, are there any more other questions, or if there are any more comments?
No, there's no questions right now. I think we've just been kind of covering them as we go, which is great. And I'm just having a look through all the different channels, and it looks like we're good on those ends. I did drop in to the chat feature the link to the Digital Boost offers page. So you can take advantage of that offer. Just a comment here, amazing talk, loved it. Brilliant session, thanks. Fantastic. We love it when we, yeah, you are so knowledgeable. You could do this underwater, I bet.
Yeah. I literally do this in my sleep. Actually, what is sleep, right? Because again, the future way of working, well, I mean, you know, for the ideal way of working is that your hours are kind of just blended now, right? So that you have the ability to do what you need to do during the day while still attending business. And that is the great thing for business owners and small to medium businesses, which are now working dispersed. It's that kind of a trust between staff, making sure that they are doing what they need to do while still having the freedom and flexibility to be available more or less around the clock. And that's where I found myself in, where I'm talking to clients regardless of where they are in terms of time zone, if they're in Australia or if they're elsewhere around the world, right? My time is a bit more flexible. Ricoh promotes this awesome way of working, which is great. I'm hardly in the office, even though it may look like I'm sitting outside the office, which I'm not really. You know, the whole kind of future way of working is, and I guess COVID being the catalyst, has really changed the way New Zealanders do business.
Yeah, there is one question here. And then another comment of a great session. It says, hi there, a normal rule of thumb was having 2 backups. Are we supposed to have to back up the cloud as well?
Yeah, actually, that's a really good point, and something that I do point out to a lot of organizations when we talk about this. Backing up your information isn't by default, right? So even though you have your file storage, let's say you're using SharePoint or OneDrive in the cloud, or if you're using Microsoft Exchange or Microsoft Office, so having all your emails in Microsoft 365, that information by default isn't backed up. Right. So Microsoft will guarantee and secure against hardware failures inside their data centers, and will and provide, I guess, assurances around the hardware failures and access to information. But you backing up the information yourself is something that a client is responsible for doing. So in saying that, there are different ways to back that information up. We employ the use of a very, very smart way of backing things up, where it automatically backs up every 4 hours, well, every 6 hours, 4 times a day, to an off-site separate cloud system, right? So even though you're putting your stuff in the cloud and it's backed up, so you've got all your information on your computer, right? And you're putting it into a folder on your laptop, and then that's backed up to cloud storage. You then have your staff, which are also doing the same thing, right? Their information on their laptops are then backed up to cloud storage as well. That cloud storage instance is then backed up against a parallel universe, as per se, or a parallel instance, so that all your information isn't just put into one basket, right? So yes, I would still highly recommend multiple backups, but there are far more easier automated ways to do it rather than swapping out external drives. Or I can remember going, when I was a kind of a youngster in the IT world, going in and swapping tape drives, in my server room at the organization I was working for, and then would have Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and then a weekend tape drive, and you would kind of swap it out accordingly, and then someone would then take one home, so you'd have all these kind of physical handling of data. That I would not recommend, because let's say if your bag was lost, if you were on the bus and someone stole your bag, or someone broke into your car and stole your bag, that tape drive would be included, which is basically all of your company's information. So physically handling your organization's data is a terrible idea. I would not recommend that at all. Having it transported safely and securely via cloud storage and backed up in cloud storage is 100% best practice and the way to go.
Interesting.
So multiple points of backup, yes, still definitely best practice, but it's kind of changed from physical to now being a bit more digital and applying a lot of artificial intelligence around it, so that you're not backing up the same item all the time, so that you're not using a lot of bandwidth. You're not, it's incremental, and it's based on file changes. What you can then do now, and I'm going to, again, just very quickly touch on this because it's kind of down this little rabbit hole, is that then allows for versioning, that allows for different file versions, right? If with Microsoft SharePoint and OneDrive, it's very, very clever and smart. If you make a change to a document, Anna-Marie, and then I make a change to that document, and we have access to that document inside Microsoft SharePoint, we can then roll back different versions. So if a file is corrupted, or if a file is adjusted in a way that it's beyond use, you can actually roll that version back inside SharePoint. And you can't do that with a traditional file storage backup from an external drive. Once you've saved over that file, it's done.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
With cloud,
I do love that. I love the versions, being able to use versions. I had to use it the other day. I do have a question about the offer here. It just says the offers for businesses with 10 users. What do you have for smaller businesses?
With smaller organizations and smaller businesses, please feel free to contact us anyway, right? Look, if you don't meet the 10 user threshold, I can kind of figure something out for you, right? And I can kind of,
perfect.
At the end of the day, look, we have to put a number on it just to kind of signify the importance of this, because at the end of the day, I am very, very used to dealing with organizations with hundreds and hundreds of users, right through to organizations with only 10 to 20 users, right? So again, with Ricoh and myself, doing business with these organizations, regardless of how big or small they are, we understand the need for security is still there, regardless of the size of the organization. If you have less than 10 users, again, still feel free to reach out. I'm more than happy to have a discussion, a one-to-one discussion to see what we can come up with your organization. But Ricoh and myself, we believe that having access to the right security and advice around the right security shouldn't come at a huge cost, especially to small to medium businesses.
I'm just putting in, they wanted to get your contact details. I would recommend use the link, and then the link will direct you through. Yeah, so that'd be the best way to do that. So
absolutely. Being an IT security professional, it wouldn't be wise for me to provide contact information using this forum. I would say go to the website and submit your information, and then we'll get in contact with you, rather than here's my email, because
that's an email out there. Yeah, totally. Thank you so much, Erron, for your session today. It's been fabulous. So much great feedback coming in. All the lights going up on the Facebook as well, and so that's really great. And we've gone over time, but there was so much value in this. I think it's just been really great, and I'm looking forward to implementing some of these systems now into some of my little business that I've got. I probably need to consider some of these things a little bit more heavily, which was a great reminder. And yeah, So we're all going to get into it now. We've got homework now.
Yeah, great way to kick off your week on a Monday morning, right? Let's talk about some security.
Yeah. So I'm going to say ka kite, everyone. Have a wonderful day, and we'll see you tomorrow.